My name is Morgan Reynolds. I'm 28, a sergeant in the United States Army, and after 8 years of service missing 7 Christmases with my family, I was finally coming home. I'd counted down the days, packed my bags, even bought presents, then my phone buzzed with a text from my father, "Don't bother coming home." It felt like my chest had been hollowed out with a dull knife, but I only replied one word, "Fine." 7 days later, I woke up to 20 missed calls from my family and one from their lawyer. Growing up in Portland, Maine, the Reynolds family looked flawless from the outside. Picture perfect colonial house overlooking the harbor. Dad built his construction company from nothing, becoming one of the most respected businessmen in town. Mom gave up teaching to help run the business and raise us kids. My older brother Travis was the golden boy, groomed from birth to take over someday. My younger sister Jessica was the academic superstar heading to medical school. And me, I was the middle child who never fit their perfect mold. "Morgan, why can't you just follow the plan like your brother?" Dad would snap whenever I showed interest in anything outside the family business. "Reynolds Construction has your name on it too." But I had different dreams. While Travis shadowed Dad at construction sites and Jessica collected awards, I joined ROTC in high school. The structure, the purpose, the brotherhood, it called to something deep in my soul. The day I announced my intention to enlist instead of attending the business school Dad had already paid a deposit for was the first time I saw him truly lose control. "No daughter of mine is going to waste her life taking orders and getting shot at," he roared, his face turning that dangerous shade of red that always meant someone was about to get destroyed. My hands trembled, but my voice stayed steady. "I've made my decision, Dad. I ship out next month." "Then you're no longer welcome in this house," Mom gasped. Travis looked away like a coward. Jessica started crying. Only my grandmother Alina had the balls to stand up to him. "This is Morgan's choice to make. It's a stupid choice," he spat, "and she'll regret it." I left for basic training with only grandma's blessing and a heart full of rage. The next 8 years blurred desert heat, military bases, combat zones that never left my dreams. Basic nearly broke me, but for once I belonged. No one cared about my last name, only that I pulled my weight and had my team's back. That's where I met Cassandra Casbrooks. We survived boot camp together, deployed side by side, and she became the sister Jessica never was. "Most people join to escape or to find something," Kaz said one starlit night. "Which are you?" "Both," I answered, escaping expectations, finding myself. My first tour was hell, blistering heat, danger, homesickness, but I found my strength. I was calm under pressure, respected, a natural leader. During our second tour, I led a counterattack during an ambush that saved 12 lives, including 2 children. I earned the Silver Star. I mailed the news clipping home. Mom called crying. Jessica wrote a kind note. Travis texted a quick congrats. From Dad, silence. Over the years, our contact was minimal. Mom called on holidays, always careful not to mention him. Jessica shifted to psychology but never said why. Travis sent generic Christmas cards. Only Grandma Leaner truly stayed in touch, letters in graceful fountain pen script. "Your grandfather would be proud," she once wrote. "He served in Korea, though your father never says so." Not every Reynolds man was a businessman. When Grandma suffered a minor stroke last October, something inside me snapped. It was time to stop running, time to come home for Christmas. My commanding officer, Captain Wilson, didn't hesitate to approve the leave. "Family is complicated, Reynolds, but at some point you have to face the music." I reached out first to Mom, then my siblings. Their responses seemed cautiously positive. "Of course we want you home for Christmas," Mom wrote. "It's been too long." "About time," was Travis's reply. "Can't wait to see you," Jessica texted with actual exclamation points. For the first time in 8 years, I allowed myself to hope. Maybe the wounds had healed, maybe Dad had softened, maybe this Christmas would be the reconciliation I'd secretly been craving. I was dead wrong. 3 days before my scheduled departure, my phone buzzed while I was packing my duffel bag. I'd spent weeks finding perfect gifts, handcrafted jewelry box for Mom, vintage compass for Travis, psychology books for Jessica, cashmere scarf for Grandma. The notification showed Dad. My heart stopped. This was the first direct communication from him in 8 years. With shaking fingers, I opened the message. "We've moved on with our lives. Your room is Travis's home office now. Don't bother coming home for Christmas. It will only upset your mother." I read it 3 times. Each word hit like a punch to the gut. The dismissal, the finality, the way he weaponized Mom's feelings while protecting only his own. My first instinct was to call Mom, but I stopped myself. How many times had she chosen peace over standing up for me? I started typing lengthy responses, deleting each one. In the end, I wrote just one word: fine. That single word contained 8 years of hurt, anger, and resignation. It was acceptance that some relationships couldn't be fixed, no matter how desperately you wanted them to be. Captain Wilson found me sitting on my bunk, staring at nothing. "Reynolds, thought you'd be halfway to the airport by now." I handed him my phone without a word. He read the message, his expression darkening like a storm rolling in. "Your father's a fool," he said finally. "Looks like I'll be here for Christmas after all." "Like hell you will," Cass appeared in the doorway. "My parents have a house in Vermont. They already invited you, remember?" "I don't want to intrude." "Shut up, Reynolds." Cass grabbed my half-empty duffel and started refilling it. "My mom already bought you a stocking with your name on it." That night I made a different decision. I would still go to Maine, but not to crawl back to my family. I found a small rental cabin near my hometown, a place to retreat, reflect, and maybe find some closure. The journey home felt like traveling back in time. As the plane descended through clouds toward Portland, memories flooded back. Childhood Christmases with stockings hanging from the ornate fireplace, the smell of Mom's cinnamon rolls, sledding with Travis and Jessica on the hill behind our house. For a moment, I let myself feel the full weight of what I'd lost, or maybe what I'd never really had. The rental cabin was nothing like the Reynolds family mansion. Small, rustic, with mismatched furniture and a heating system that sounded like it was dying. But it was clean, quiet, and mine for the next 2 weeks. After settling in, I drove to the local grocery store. That's where everything started unraveling. Morgan Reynolds, is that you? Rachel Thomas, my best friend from high school, stood there with a shopping basket. Her curly hair was shorter now, and she looked tired but happy. Rachel, I dropped my basket and hugged her, suddenly grateful for a friendly face. Oh my God, when did you get back? Are you home for good? Why didn't you tell anyone you were coming? I hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. Just got in today, I'm on leave for Christmas. Your parents must be thrilled. I ran into your mom last week and she didn't mention anything. My stomach twisted. It was sort of last minute. Rachel's expression shifted as she read between the lines. You're not staying with them, are you? I rented a cabin up by Crystal Lake. She nodded slowly, understanding more than I was saying. Want to grab coffee? Catch up properly? Over coffee, I gave Rachel the sanitized version. There was tension with Dad. I needed space. But Rachel had grown up in this town. She knew things. I'm not surprised, she said finally. Your dad's been different these past few years, more controlling from what my parents say. They used to do business with Reynolds Construction until your dad suddenly dropped their contract without explanation. What do you mean? I don't know the details, just that there have been rumors, changes in the business, people let go without notice. She hesitated. He tells everyone you refuse to come home, by the way, has for years. The revelation stung more than it should have. While I'd been defending my country, Dad had been rewriting my story for anyone who'd listen. Well, I said, finishing my coffee, I'm home now, whether he likes it or not. The next morning, a sharp knock jolted me awake. I instinctively reached for a weapon that wasn't there. 8 years in combat zones creates habits that don't disappear overnight. Through the peephole, Grandma Alina, leaning on her cane but looking fierce as ever. Were you planning to tell me you were in town? She demanded when I opened the door, but her stern expression melted into a smile. Oh, look at you, still standing at attention like a proper soldier. I relaxed and hugged her carefully. She felt smaller than I remembered, more fragile. How did you find me? Rachel's mother called me. This town has no secrets, dear. You should know that by now. She settled into the armchair by the window. Now tell me why you're hiding in this cabin instead of staying in your home. Dad made it clear I wasn't welcome, she sighed deeply. That son of mine has always been too proud for his own good, but there's more to it this time. She leaned forward. The business is in trouble, Morgan, serious trouble. What kind of trouble? Financial, legal, I'm not sure of the details. Richard doesn't confide in me anymore, but he's changed. More secretive, more controlling with Diana and the children. She reached for my hand. Travis made some poor decisions with company investments. Jessica withdrew from her PhD program without telling anyone. Your mother barely leaves the house now. The picture she painted was disturbing, a family unraveling while maintaining their perfect facade. Why are you telling me this, Grandma? Because you deserve to know what you're walking into. She squeezed my hand, and because despite everything, they're still your family. After Alina left, I tried to process everything she'd shared. My phone stayed silent, no calls or texts from Mom or my siblings, despite Rachel's mother undoubtedly spreading news of my return. That's when I noticed the black SUV parked across from my cabin. It looked out of place among the modest vehicles typical for the area. When I drove into town later, the same SUV appeared in my rearview mirror, maintaining a consistent distance. I used counter-surveillance techniques from my army training, sudden turns, doubling back, varying speed. The SUV stayed with me. At a red light, I got a clear view of the driver, Dad. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. This wasn't about family reconciliation. This was surveillance. That evening, I found Travis at the Anchor, a dive bar where we used to sneak beers as teenagers. He was alone, nursing what looked like whiskey, and he'd gained weight since I'd last seen him. His once confident posture had deteriorated into a defeated slouch. Buy you a drink, stranger, I said, sliding onto the stool beside him. He startled, then gave me a lopsided smile that didn't reach his eyes. Look what the war sent back. 3 drinks later, Travis's carefully maintained facade began cracking. You were smart to leave, Mo, he slurred, using my childhood nickname for the first time in years. Should have gone with you. What's happening with the business, Travis? He laughed bitterly. Business? What business? It's all smoke and mirrors now. He leaned in conspiratorially. Dad overextended, bid on contracts we couldn't fulfill. Then I made some investments that went south, really south. So the company's in financial trouble? Financial, legal, ethical, take your pick. He drained his glass. Dad found a way to save it, though, always does. What way? Travis's bloodshot eyes met mine. You don't want to know, Mo, trust me. He stood unsteadily. I should go. Dad tracks my car's mileage now. The next morning, I received a text from an unknown number, diner on Route 9. 11 a.m., come alone, Mom. The Route 9 diner was 30 minutes outside town, far enough that Mom wouldn't risk running into anyone she knew. I arrived early, securing a booth with views of both entrances. Mom arrived exactly at 11, looking elegant as always in a camel coat and pearl earrings. But like Jessica and Travis, she showed signs of strained new lines around her mouth, nervous flutter in her hands. "Morgan," she said, her voice catching, you look strong. Military training will do that." She winced at the reference to my career choice. "Why all the secrecy, Mom, and why is Dad following me around town? He doesn't know I'm here." She glanced anxiously at the door. "He monitors my phone, my car's GPS." I had to tell him I was getting my hair done in Portsmouth. She reached across the table, stopping just short of touching my hand. "You need to leave, Morgan, go back to your base, forget about this Christmas visit." "Why, what's going on? Your father?" She lowered her voice. "He blames you for everything, he's not rational anymore. When he found out you were coming home," she stopped herself. "After he told me not to come," I interrupted. "After he learned you had already arranged leave, she stopped again. "After he what, Mom? It doesn't matter, what matters is you're not safe here, none of us are with you stirring everything up." "I'm not stirring anything, I just came home for Christmas." "Please, Morgan," tears filled her eyes, "he blames you for everything. The business problems, Travis's mistakes," Jessica dropping out. "He says if you had joined the company like you were supposed to, none of this would have happened." It was irrational, but classic dad finding external blame for internal failures. "I need to understand what's happening," I insisted. "No, you need to leave," she stood abruptly. "I've done what I could, warned you, the rest is up to you." After Mom left, I sat for a long time processing. My military training had taught me to assess threats, gather intelligence, and formulate strategies. Time to apply those skills to my own family. Back at the cabin, I began investigating Reynolds' construction online. Public records showed a dramatic shift 5 years ago from local commercial projects to exclusive government contracts, primarily military infrastructure. Contract values had tripled, then quadrupled. Local news archives revealed complaints from competing firms about irregular bidding processes and conflicts of interest, all eventually dismissed. Then I found something that made my blood run cold: a press release announcing Reynolds Construction's unique qualification status due to having veteran leadership with high-level military security clearance. Reynolds Construction had no veteran leadership. Unless the pieces clicked into place like bullets sliding into a chamber. Dad's sudden interest in military contracts coinciding with my rising rank, the security clearance I'd obtained during my second tour, the silence from Dad despite my military achievements. He hadn't been ignoring my career, he'd been exploiting it. That night, returning from the library where I'd been researching, I found a note tucked under my windshield wiper. "Soldiers should know when to retreat." The handwriting was unmistakably Dad's. I called Captain Wilson, careful to use my secure military line. "Sir, I need to ask you something officially. Has anyone ever requested verification of my security clearance or service record for civilian contracting purposes?" His pause told me everything. "There have been inquiries, yes, standard procedure for family businesses with military contracts when a family member serves." "Why do you ask?" "I need to know if any documentation was ever processed with my signature authorizing Reynolds Construction to use my military credentials." Another pause, longer this time. "Reynolds, are you telling me you never signed such authorization?" "Never, sir." "I'll look into it immediately. In the meantime, document everything and watch your back." That night, I barely slept. The pieces of the puzzle swirled in my mind: Dad's desperate need to save his failing company, my convenient military credentials, the sudden influx of lucrative government contracts requiring security clearance, and now federal investigations into irregular bidding processes. Dad wasn't just estranged from me. He was setting me up to take the fall. I woke on the seventh day to my phone buzzing incessantly. 20 missed calls lit up my screen: 5 from Mom, 7 from Jessica, 3 from Travis, 4 from Alina, and 1 from Howard Reynolds, Dad's lawyer and oldest friend. The voicemail started calmly but grew increasingly frantic. "Morgan, it's Mom. Call me as soon as you get this." "Morgan, seriously, pick up, it's Jessica." "Dad's in the hospital." "Mo, it's Trav. Dad had a heart attack last night. It's bad, call me." "Morgan, it's your grandmother. Whatever you're thinking, put it aside. Your father needs you." The last voicemail made my blood freeze. "Miss Reynolds, this is Howard Reynolds. I represent your family's legal interests. We need to discuss certain signatures before the situation escalates further. Please call my office immediately." I dressed quickly and drove to Portland General Hospital, my mind racing. Was this another manipulation? A trap to get me where federal investigators might be waiting? Or had Dad actually suffered a heart attack from the stress of his scheme unraveling? The hospital waiting room was a tableau of Reynolds' family dysfunction. Mom sat rigidly in a corner chair, makeup perfect despite the circumstances. Jessica paced, biting her nails, a habit Dad had always criticized harshly. Travis stood by the window, looking hungover and defeated. They all froze when I walked in. "How is he?" I asked, directing the question to no one in particular. "Stable," Jessica answered when no one else did. "Triple bypass surgery scheduled for tomorrow." Her eyes narrowed. "What did you do, Morgan?" "Excuse me." "Dad was fine until you decided to come back and stir everything up," she hissed. "He got your text and collapsed 20 minutes later." "I didn't text Dad. Don't lie, he showed us the message, threatening to go to the authorities after everything he's done for you." I felt cold clarity settle over me. I didn't send any text. And Dad hasn't done anything for me in 8 years except apparently forge my signature and potentially commit fraud using my military credentials. The waiting room fell silent, Mom's face drained of color. You don't know what you're talking about, Travis said, but his voice lacked conviction. Don't I? Reynolds Construction suddenly specializing in military contracts requiring security clearance? Dad following me around town. The lawyer calling about certain signatures? I looked at each of them. What did he do? What did you all let him do? Miss Reynolds. Howard Reynolds appeared in the doorway looking grave. Despite being in his 60s, he stood tall and imposing in his tailored suit. A word, please. I followed him to a quiet corridor. Your father suffered a serious cardiac event last night, he began. After allegedly receiving a threatening text from you that I never sent, he studied me carefully. I've known your father for 30 years. He's a proud, difficult man, but he loves his family. Is that why he forged my signature to fraudulently obtain government contracts? Reynolds didn't deny it. Instead, he sighed deeply. The situation is complicated. Simplify it for me. Your father's company was failing. The recession hit construction hard, then an opportunity arose for military contracts, but they required someone with security clearance on the executive team. Let me guess, Dad decided his estranged daughter in active service was the perfect solution. He thought you'd never find out, the credentials were just to get the contracts, the work itself was legitimate. Except for the fraud part. Reynolds looked uncomfortable. Yes, well, that's where things got complicated. When federal auditors began asking questions, your father needed a contingency plan. He was going to blame me, I said flatly. That's why he didn't want me coming home. He needed time to set up the paper trail showing I was the one who authorized everything. Richard made some poor choices under extreme pressure. Poor choices. He committed fraud using my military credentials while I was risking my life overseas, then planned to let me take the fall for it. Those aren't poor choices, they're crimes. Before Reynolds could respond, Grandma Leaner appeared, moving faster than I'd seen since my arrival. Morgan, she said, her voice tight with urgency, I need to show you something. She thrust a folder at me. I found these in Richard's home office safe. Inside were documents with my signature, or rather, forgeries of my signature on security clearance authorization forms, contract applications, and military vendor registrations, all dated during periods when I'd been deployed overseas. I always suspected Richard was hiding something, Aliner said. After our talk, I decided to do some investigating of my own. Reynolds looked stricken. Aliner, you broke into Richard's safe. I built that house, Howard. I know all its secrets. She turned to me. I've already made copies. These are the originals. A commotion down the hall interrupted us, Mom crying out, medical staff rushing toward Dad's room. He's having another episode, Jessica called, her face pale with fear. For a moment, I hesitated. Despite everything, this was my father, the man who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd carried me on his shoulders at parades, who'd once been my hero. Then I remembered his text, don't bother coming home, and my response, fine. It wasn't just acceptance, it was a declaration of independence. I need to make some calls, I told Reynolds, starting with my military legal counsel. The military moves fast when one of their own is threatened. By that evening, I was meeting with JAG Corps attorneys in a secure room at the Portland Federal Building. They listened intently as I presented the evidence Aliner had recovered, along with my own findings. This is a clear case of identity theft, fraud, and potentially espionage if sensitive information was compromised, Major Lisa Hernandez, the lead attorney, concluded. You did the right thing coming to us, Sergeant Reynolds. What happens now? We coordinate with federal investigators who are already looking into irregularities with these contracts. Your father and anyone else involved will face questioning. She looked at me sympathetically. I understand this is your family, that makes it harder. My family made their choices, I said, though my voice betrayed more emotion than I intended. Outside the federal building, Ryan was waiting, the handyman who'd fixed my cabin's leaky faucet and somehow become a friend. Thought you might need a friendly face, he said. Rachel told me where you were. The simple kindness broke something in me. After maintaining military composure through the hospital confrontation and legal meetings, I finally allowed myself to feel the full weight of my family's betrayal. Ryan didn't offer empty reassurances. He just drove me back to the cabin, made hot chocolate spiked with whiskey, and listened as I processed aloud. The worst part is they're still acting like I'm the one who betrayed them, I said. Like coming home and discovering their fraud is worse than the fraud itself. People get weird when their secrets come to light, Ryan observed. They blame the messenger rather than face what was revealed. The next few days were a blur of interviews and audits. Federal agents questioned me repeatedly, and military officers combed through every contract linked to my credentials. Dad made it through surgery but remained in the ICU. I stayed away, focused on clearing my name and unraveling his mess. On the fourth day, Travis showed up at the cabin, haggard and quiet. They froze everything, he said. 6-hour interview yesterday. Did you know Dad used my credentials? He looked down. I suspected, didn't want to know. And you were fine letting me take the fall? I didn't know it'd go that far, he muttered. I'm sorry, Mo, I should have said something a long time ago. It wasn't enough, but it was something. The next day, Jessica appeared messy, angry. Dad might go to prison, she said. Is that what you want? What I want doesn't matter. He committed federal crimes. He was trying to save us. By sacrificing me, you left us. I joined the army. Dad's the one who disowned me. She hesitated. He had to control everything. And you all let him. What choice did we have? The same one I made. I lowered my voice. Why'd you really quit your PhD, Jess? She blinked fast. Panic attacks, sleepless nights. Dad wanted perfection. I wanted to teach kindergarten. She laughed bitterly. He said no Reynolds would waste their potential like that. Gradually, the full picture emerged. Dad had been slowly imploding for years, trying to maintain control as his business faltered and his children sought independence. Travis's investment mistakes had accelerated the financial decline. In desperation, Dad had seen an opportunity in my military service, a way to access lucrative contracts through my security clearance. When federal auditors began questioning the credentials, he'd planned to claim I'd authorized everything, portraying me as a resentful daughter trying to sabotage the family from afar. My surprise Christmas visit had thrown his plan into chaos. Mom finally came to see me a week after Dad's surgery. She looked smaller somehow, diminished without Dad's commanding presence beside her. He's asking for you, she said. The doctors say his recovery depends on reducing stress. So I'm supposed to pretend everything's fine, that he didn't try to frame me for his crimes? I'm asking you to listen to what he has to say. She twisted her wedding ring nervously. I'm not defending what he did. It was wrong, terribly wrong. Did you know? She couldn't meet my eyes. I suspected something wasn't right with the new contracts. Richard became secretive, working late, locking his office, but I never imagined he would use your credentials. She finally looked up. I should have protected you better all these years. Her admission wasn't enough to heal the wound, but it was something, a crack in the Reynolds family facade. I'll think about seeing him, was all I could promise. 2 weeks later, I finally agreed to see Dad. He was at home now, recovering in the master bedroom that had once seemed so imposing. Now, with him propped up against pillows and medical equipment beside the bed, he looked diminished. Morgan, he said when I entered. His voice was weaker than I remembered. I stood at attention, automatically, soldier's instinct in the presence of perceived authority. Don't call me that, I'm your father. Are you? You haven't acted like it for 8 years. He winced. I deserve that. Uncomfortable silence stretched between us. Why? I finally asked. Why use my credentials? Why risk everything, including me? He looked away. The business was failing, everything I'd built, everything I wanted to leave to you children. I was desperate. So desperate you'd let me take the fall? I never intended. He stopped, then corrected himself. No, that's not true. I did intend it at the end, when everything was crashing down. His eyes met mine. I've spent my life believing I was building something important, something that mattered. When it started to fail, I couldn't accept it. That doesn't excuse what you did. No, it doesn't. To my shock, tears formed in his eyes. I was always proud of you, your courage, your independence. I just didn't know how to show it. Couldn't admit I was wrong to push you away. The admission stunned me. This vulnerable version of my father was someone I'd never seen before. That doesn't excuse what you did, I repeated more softly this time. No, he agreed. It doesn't. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet, but it was a beginning. Spring brought new beginnings. Reynolds Construction officially entered federal receivership. The fraud investigation uncovered multiple violations beyond just the misuse of my credentials: tax evasion, bribery of local officials, falsified inspection reports. Dad, facing overwhelming evidence, accepted a plea deal acknowledging his guilt in exchange for a reduced sentence considering his health. The family business would be restructured under court supervision, with Travis and Jessica taking control once legal issues were resolved. Dad would serve house arrest and pay substantial fines that nearly bankrupted the family. Mom, shell-shocked by the rapid unraveling of her perfect life, began seeing a therapist. Gradually, she started reclaiming parts of herself that had been buried under Dad's domineering personality. She resumed teaching part-time at the local community college. I enabled him, she admitted during one of our cautious coffee meetings. For years, I chose peace over truth, stability over integrity. I won't make that mistake again. Jessica, freed from Dad's expectations, re-enrolled in school not for psychology but for early childhood education. The panic attacks subsided as she pursued her genuine passion. I spent so many years trying to be who Dad wanted, she told me. I barely know who I actually am. You'll figure it out, I assured her. It took me joining the army and getting shot at to find myself. She laughed, a genuine sound I hadn't heard from her in years. Maybe I'll skip that part of the journey. Travis had the hardest road ahead. As the favored son groomed to take over, his identity had been entirely wrapped up in Reynolds Construction and Dad's approval. The company's restructuring and Dad's disgrace left him adrift. I don't know how to be anything except Richard Reynolds' son and heir, he confessed during a rare vulnerable moment. Then become someone else, I suggested. Someone better. Eleanor hosted Christmas dinner at her small cottage, a far cry from the lavish Reynolds family celebrations of the past, but somehow more authentic. Mom brought her famous cinnamon rolls, Jessica decorated with handmade ornaments. Travis, making an effort to contribute, arrived with armloads of firewood and local craft beers. Dad remained at home, still too weak to attend, and though no one said it aloud, not entirely welcome yet. The shadow of his actions hung over us but didn't define the gathering. Ryan joined us, fitting seamlessly into the strange new family dynamic we were creating. His steady presence and dry humor helped ease the awkward moments. Strangest Christmas I've ever had, he whispered to me as we washed dishes together, also maybe the best. The military granted me extended leave to deal with the family crisis and legal proceedings. Captain Wilson called regularly, ensuring I had the support I needed. Take the time you need, Reynolds, he insisted. Your unit will be here when you're ready to return. As winter deepened, I began considering my future. I had 2 years left in my current enlistment. After that, possibilities stretched before me continuing my military career, returning to civilian life, perhaps even staying in my hometown permanently. I'm thinking of starting a veterans support program here, I told Ryan one evening as we walked along the snow-covered beach. After my service ends, something to help soldiers transition back to civilian life. Sounds like someone found her calling, he observed, taking my gloved hand in his. The most difficult conversations were still with Dad. As his physical health improved, we began the painful process of addressing the damage he'd caused. I don't expect forgiveness, he said during one of our carefully structured visits. I don't deserve it. Forgiveness isn't about deserving, I replied, repeating words from the military chaplain who'd helped me process combat trauma. It's about choosing to release the burden of anger. It doesn't mean forgetting or excusing. When did my daughter get so wise? He asked, a glimmer of his old self showing through. Somewhere between basic training and pulling wounded civilians from a burning building, I answered honestly. Slowly, painfully, we began rebuilding not the old relationship based on control and expectations, but something new, grounded in difficult truths and cautious hope. Alina watched our family's transformation with quiet satisfaction. Family isn't just what you're born into, she told me as we sat together on her porch watching snow fall gently on the garden. It's what you create through love and truth and forgiveness, even when it's messy. Especially when it's messy, I agreed. As spring approached, bringing my leave to an end, I reflected on the journey that had begun with a single text and my one-word response. When Dad had written "Don't bother coming home" and I'd answered "Fine," neither of us could have imagined where that exchange would lead. His rejection had ultimately freed me to find my voice and strength. My fine wasn't just acceptance, it was the beginning of standing my ground, of refusing to be controlled or manipulated any longer. If I could write a letter to my younger self, that uncertain girl who joined the army to escape her father's expectations, I would tell her, the rejection that breaks your heart today will lead you to the strength that defines your tomorrow. The family you fight to please isn't the only family you'll have. Sometimes the hardest roads lead to the truest destinations. I found peace not in winning Dad's approval, but in no longer needing it. I found family not just in blood relations, but in the people who stood by me through crisis. Ryan, Alina, Rachel, my military colleagues. The night before I was scheduled to return to base, I sat alone in the cabin that had become a sanctuary. I wrote in my journal, sometimes rejection is direction. Sometimes fine is the most powerful word you can say. And sometimes the family you fight hardest to be part of isn't the family you actually need. I'd come home seeking reconciliation and found revelation instead. The road ahead remained complicated, legal proceedings continuing, family relationships still fragile, Dad's health uncertain. But for the first time in years, I felt truly at peace with who I was and where I belonged. If you've ever felt rejected by those who should love you most, know that your worth isn't determined by their acceptance. If you've struggled to fit into someone else's vision of who you should be, know that the most liberating moment comes when you finally embrace who you actually are. Sometimes the best response to "don't come home" is simply "fine." And sometimes that single word contains all the power you need to rewrite your entire story.